Stanford University, 1972. Jacques Vallée is recruited by the National Science Foundation to work as a principal investigator on a project known as ARPANET. It was here where he helped build the first public computer network ever developed, and it is considered by many to be the forerunner of the Internet.
ARPA was the Advanced Research Project Agency of the Pentagon. There are 15 computing centers at universities. At Stanford Research Institute, we had site number 2, the second computer on the Internet. I ran one of the projects of many, and we implemented the first computer conferencing systems when the ARPANET was going to turn into the Internet.
This is an incredible part of Vallée's story. He goes to Silicon Valley and becomes amazingly successful in the early days of ARPANET.
While working as a senior research engineer at Stanford, on his own time, Vallée continued to compile reports on unidentified aerial phenomena. And the more information he gathered, the more he began to question the very nature of UFOs.
What I found was that the ufologists were still talking about UFOs like they were advanced airplanes. Well, that ignores pretty much everything that UFOs do. Whatever propulsion there is certainly not anything that we account for in our equations. And you ask the witnesses, how fast did it go off? And they say, it lifted and then it disappeared. And the interpretation is they turn on, the afterburners, and they go boom, and you don't see them anymore. That's not true.
Vallée came to believe, based on the evidence that he saw in the literary tradition, as well as what he's seeing in the sightings and the documentation, that perhaps what we're actually dealing with is an interdimensional phenomenon, and that extraterrestrials are in fact coming from other dimensions.
Jacques Vallée was one of the first scientists to ever bring in a multidimensional theory in context with the UFO topic. Jacques was ahead of his time, and he's open-minded enough as a scientist to be able to go there and be very passionate about it.
Jacques Vallée changed his opinion from nuts and bolts spacecraft to it being that we live in a multiverse and that multiple existences are happening all at the same time. And some of the UFO sightings might be these blips of these civilizations being able to move between dimensions.
The idea that we are in a universe that has more than 3 or 4 dimensions with time, that's passé for physics. Going back to, 50 years ago, I talked to scientists and to physicists, and they tell me that essentially space and time are human perceptions. And that's where physics stands now. This doesn't come from the UFO people. It comes from hard physics. And I think part of my job, I'm not a good enough physicist to contribute to those ideas, but I can bring fuel to the discussion.
Jacques Vallée shared his idea of interdimensional travelers with his former colleague and longtime friend, J. Allen Hynek, and together, they published the theory in the 1975 book, The Edge of Reality.
Mr. Vallée opened the door to a new kind of UFOlogy. Not just little green men with flying saucers landing on the White House lawn, but creatures from another dimension. Creatures that can go through doorways and go between universes.
Vallée and Hynek's controversial ideas captured the imagination of the public, and not long after the book was released, they also caught the attention of Hollywood's most celebrated new filmmaker, Steven Spielberg.
I'm convinced there's something going on, but no one really knows what it is. Dr. Hynek certainly doesn't know what it is. I have theories, he has theories. No one really can put their finger on it. If they could, the mystery would be solved.
Jacques Vallée's influence was so profound that he came to the attention of director Steven Spielberg. Vallée as the model for the character of Claude Leconte, the French scientist that we see in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I heard of it through Dr. Hynek, that one of the characters was based on me. And then there was a reporter in Hollywood. They invited Steven Spielberg to lunch with us. And the three of us had a conversation about the movie. And he confirmed that they wanted a scientist who would be from another culture, not American, but from another culture, and would think about it in different ways. And Steven Spielberg told me he had read my first books. Anatomy of a Phenomenon was published in '65, which meant he was studying the subject way back. It was wonderful because usually in Hollywood, you know, the aliens come down and they start shooting. And that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to show the interaction, the human contact.